Well, hello, my friends. How are y'all doing today? I am so glad that you came back to my channel to watch this video. You know, y'all have been so much fun to interact with, and I really enjoy seeing your comments and you telling me things about your lives and letting me know some of your video suggestions. So please keep them coming. I really just love interacting with all of y'all, and I sincerely appreciate all of you being here. Today I'm going to read to you just part of a book by Alexandra Stoddard called Gracious Living in a New World. And for those of you who don't know who Alexandra Stoddard is, she was a prolific designer and decorator back in the 80s and 90s. And she used to have a television show on HGTV called Homes Across America. And that's when I first discovered who she was as a new bride. And so since then I have bought, I think, every book that she has written. She's a prolific writer as well, and she's just wonderful to read. She gives great insights, and she's very thoughtful in her writings. And so things that I've read from her have been in my mind for days afterwards and caused me to maybe think differently about some things. So I'm going to read to you from the back page first, the back of the book jacket of this book, and then we'll go into the first chapter. But it says, I can't talk today, y'all. It says, forget stress and embrace a life of grace. In today's fast-paced world, as we juggle family responsibilities, jobs, and social obligations, we seem to be missing out on what we fundamentally crave: a calmer, gentler, sweeter, and more gracious life. In Gracious Living in a New World, Alexandra Stoddard offers a rich assortment of ideas for achieving a gracious lifestyle. As a busy professional and dedicated wife, mother, and grandmother who revels in the energy of the city and basks in the tranquility of the village, Alexandria is uniquely poised to help us smooth the frayed edges of our lives. Positive and practical, her path towards gracious living does not require money or extra hands around the house. When we give ourselves and others positive time and space, our life expands to gracious proportions. We are surrounded by opportunities for living with grace. Our own hands and our own hearts are all the tools we'll ever need. All right, Chapter 1, Redefining How We Want to Live. In the village of Stonington, Connecticut, where my husband Peter and I have the good fortune to spend precious time in our small but lovely 18th century cottage, everyone buys the daily newspaper at Frankie Keene's news office. No one in Stonington has the newspaper delivered. At 7 o'clock, Frankie's store bubbles with activity. Everyone there has either jogged, bicycled, or walked their dogs over to enjoy the simple pleasure of picking a fresh newspaper off the pile and sharing a few moments with neighbors. When Peter picks up his New York Times every morning, Frankie has already penciled in Pete on the top left-hand corner of the paper. No one calls my husband Pete, but Frankie leans against the counter, crossing his arms, and tells a story about his almost 90 years in Stonington, wow, where his mother owned the store before him. There are lots of things we can do here by phone, fax, cars, or any time, the energy-saving devices, but somehow it's always sweeter to take the time and physical energy to do things ourselves. If we're not in the mood to cook, we don't simply pick up the phone and wait for our meal to be delivered to our door. We go to the fish store at the dock, select a lobster, and ask that it will be boiled and shelled. The exchange with the lobster man is usually accompanied by a friendly argument over whether we will come back for a lobster or wait. Every time we flip a coin to decide, either way, we like to take our time. Who knows what will happen in the stolen minutes while waiting? A chance to reflect, rest, maybe happen upon some friends, or watch a boat go by. In Stonington, everyone has an easy smile. No one rushes. There's never any need to. Life has a steady, reliable pace. There's always time to smell the roses. We welcome the day and look for opportunities to let life unfold. Emerson wrote, "To find the journey's end in every step of the road, to live the greatest number of golden hours is wisdom." After we pick up the paper, often we stop at the Yellow House, a local tea and coffee shop owned by a friend who lives across the street. Water Street swings up to High Street, where the shop is located. Hanging out at a table on the cafe sidewalk is a great way to see the village and all the people coming and going. On the way back to the cottage, we wave to the shopkeepers, sometimes stopping for a brief visit to exchange views with the owners as well as the other customers, who are often our neighbors. In restaurants, we mingle, friends come over to our table, and sometimes we pull up chairs and sit together. The post office is a meeting place where we invariably see friends. Here, everybody exchanges a few cheerful greetings. The lumber yard is another favorite place to poke around at leisure, where you may discover just the right nail or piece of wood for a home improvement project while running into fellow villagers. Time softens its edges in the village, becoming a continuous stream of engaging moments where we're more in tune with our senses and the rhythms of nature. There's always time to go to the nursery to buy more grass seed, brew iced tea, pick herbs from the garden, and have an afternoon siesta. The fresh bread, strudels, and cookies are transported warm from the oven of a restaurant a few blocks down the street. I never stock up on anything because I enjoy having certain errands to run each day. We all take time to drop things off. Our house is on the way to the beach and the point, so we often receive a handwritten note tossed through our letter slot on our front door. If there's information a neighbor knows you'd be interested in, it'll show up in your box or basket. A friend next door takes pictures of us with friends at our door or at the gate and later drops them off later in the week with a one-line note. Once when we were away, Margie photographed our window boxes brimming with geraniums because she thought they looked so pretty. The interactions are never obtrusive. Always there is a gentle communication. Every house in this cozy little village reflects the cheerful, unpretentious spirit of the people who live here. Some houses are big, others quite small, like ours, but inside every home, one senses a juiciness and love of life. Everyone's window box brims with pansies or geraniums. Houses and picket fences are repainted each spring. Since our town is on a peninsula, many of the homes are set near the water. Our cottage is not on the water, but we enjoy a view of Long Island Sound over a neighbor's garage, a view that we love climbing up to admire any chance we get. We have regular sunset gatherings at each other's homes all around town. We all take a special pleasure in sharing the wonder of nature in the arms of our community. People look out for each other here. My neighbors and I think of each other as extended family. We all know each other by name and genuinely care about each other's welfare. When Peter was sick several winters ago, friends brought us homemade soup and preserves, logs for the fire, fresh strawberries and yellow roses, and warm letters. If the season is right, bunches of ripe tomatoes and petunias will appear on our doorstep. Man, I want to live in Stonington, Connecticut. We all tend to regard every little errand as an opportunity for a visit. Friends often stop over on their way to do chores, whether we go to the lumber yard to get some nails, to the bookstore to pick up a new biography, to the library to do research, or to the market to get some of Donna's freshly baked Portuguese sweetbread. Everyone does their daily rounds with an eagerness for life and the gratification of connecting to a few friends along the way. We greet often with a hug and always with lively conversation. Peter loves doing errands, moving about the village, meeting and greeting. Wherever you go, people love to tell their favorite stories. From Doug the barber to the waitress Julie, who doubles as a corrections officer during the week. One of the most successful real estate brokers in the area works at a local restaurant as a bartender on Friday nights, just so he can stay in touch with everyone in town. The waitress at Noah's, another local restaurant, is a graphic designer. She always fills us in about her current projects. The waiter owns the nearby bookstore and makes certain to tell us about new books we should read. Ministers and masons have breakfast at Noah's where they debate local matters and world affairs. We all make a special effort to create an air of goodwill. In Stonington, people want to get to know each other in an easy, relaxed way. We share this blessed, spirited peninsula, but our connections to each other goes well beyond its borders. Wow, what a wonderful town. So it says next what the village can teach us. Ever since we purchased our cottage in 1989, Peter has been studying village life. He believes that there is an exquisite importance in the friendship and privacy that exists here. As our houses are all close together and near the road, we have mastered the art of genuine friendliness and caring without being obtrusive. Villages are made up of numerous exchanges at shops and restaurants. There's a great emphasis on the significance of fair dealings, which strongly affect the fabric of all of our lives. Sometimes in a large impersonal environment, people are careless, cut corners, and are indifferent in business and transactions. In the city, you often have to be on your guard so you won't be shortchanged or overcharged. In our village, everyone bends over backwards to ensure fairness. If there's a miscalculation in a transaction, it is dealt with right away. If someone takes the wrong package from a store by mistake, it is immediately understood as having been inadvertent. No one would ever be accused of a deliberate wrongdoing. Everyone is concerned with others' well-beings. For example, if someone is experiencing some sort of difficulty, one of the local ministers will be informed and will pay a friendly visit to the family's home in the spirit of helpfulness. Everyone is helpful. One August afternoon, we had a large shipment of books delivered in a gigantic van. No one could miss the sight, and several villagers dropped by to witness the scene. As Peter and I began to work up a sweat from carrying boxes, a neighbor came from across the street with a pitcher of fresh lemonade. Then the traffic along our narrow street started to back up, and we noticed a friend had parked her car. Elizabeth and her husband were on their way home and saw that we could use some strong bodies to help out. Miraculously, that enormous job got done in the fraction of the expected time. Peter believes that there is a generosity of spirit in a village often missing when the human scale is lost. One day, I admired the incredibly beautiful roses at a local restaurant and inquired who grew them. Late that afternoon, a fragrant bouquet was delivered to our cottage by a friend with a note that read, "My aunt was touched that you admired her roses. She wanted you to have this as a gift." Oh. Her husband just died, and it meant a lot to know her roses are bringing others pleasure. Villagers also donate much of their free time to community projects. They understand that the more effort they put into improvements, the better their collective lives will be. They prefer volunteer participation where individuals take pride and interest in doing things themselves rather than waiting for government funding, which defeats the spirit of enterprise. There are always projects to beautify certain areas, and people join forces to see to it that the work gets done. For example, if you walk down Elm Street, you will see a square with a fountain. Cannon Square, a memorial with 2 cannons, is where our village defended itself against the British in 1814. It is also where we have our own 4th of July celebration. A permanent committee was set up to raise funds to repair and maintain Cannon Square because it is an invaluable piece of history and heritage for villagers. A small village often lacks funds, so a school may double as a community center, a theater, or a recreational facility. There is imaginative multi-use for space with no sense of excess. In old New England villages, local governments sat in meeting houses that were also churches. Among the thinkers whose work has a profound effect on my and Peter's thinking about the advantages of village life in the modern world, is Dr. Rene Dubos, an author of the seminal work A God Within. Dr. Dubos was a microbiologist and philosopher. In his book, he muses on his own childhood in France. The very small French village in which I grew up was then, and has remained to this day, outside the mainstream of modern world. Even though it is located only 30 miles north of Paris, its name, Henonville, I'm not pronouncing that right, is not on any map. Yet, limited as village life was, it provided a rich variety of experiences which are still alive in my memory and which are indeed incarnated in my whole organic being. This enchantment, using the word in its strong sense, has conditioned my whole life. It continues to color all my feelings. Dr. Dubos found in his village an ideal microcosm, a small representative system having elements of what is large. In his small world, he found fertile soil for play, learning, companionship, and wonder. In a pond, he found the elements of nature that inspired him to become an internationally recognized microbiologist. He was a great believer in the value of living within range of the sound of church bells. Oh, that's true. Dr. Dubos teaches us the necessity of an appropriate scale for our needs as human beings. He believes we can only know a few hundred people and we can have approximately a dozen intimate friends. By breaking bigness down, we're able to know ourselves and others better, and we're able to participate more because we can understand the dynamics of our interchanges. In the village, our collective talents and skills are put to use for our own enjoyment and for the improvement of the whole community. One day, Mark Pescatello came in his shiny white truck and saw me tiptoeing, trying to put up our flag. Within a few days, Mark and his assistant arrived with a huge slab of granite as a plinth for Peter and me to stand on when we raise and take down the flag. We call it Mark Rock. Once after a storm, I noticed a cracked window pane in our bedroom. A contractor friend took a look at it and told us how easily it could be fixed. The lumber yard will replace it within a few hours. Here, let me take it down for you. There's no indifference about anything, no matter how small. Everyone cares about everyone and everything. While the pace is easy in a village, there is no indolence. There isn't a portion of the community where people don't do anything. Everyone makes contributions. There's a spirit of graciousness, not passivity. People here move their feet. Stonington Village is a borough with its own internal government. The borough warden, our mayor, is the wife of a chef at a restaurant they own on Water Street, where they live upstairs. Everyone agrees that the less control, the better. Yes, indeed, the less control, the better. Though we also concur that in some areas control is beneficial and fair for everyone. For example, if anyone wants to make substantial changes to their houses, they have to have the changes approved by the borough, who decides whether the changes would unfairly impinge on another building. The village people voted down our area becoming a historic district, which would have subjected it to more outside control. Yankees don't like being told what to do. But there seems to be the right balance, sufficient control and government to meet the tone of civility. If this were not so, the village would vote to change it. Every village has to be economically self-sustaining. To do this, many people wear several hats. Our town treasurer is also the village mason, who contributes to beautifying the village as well as coaching football at the local high school. Mark's daughter works part-time at the Yellow House. In a small village, any tension that may arise from religious differences are diffused. Inhabitants are apt to be more I don't know this word and I'm embarrassed. Ecumenical. MENICAL, joining forces for leadership to help the community. When there is this common commitment to help, religious diversity only adds to the richness of community. The village is somewhat sheltered from the rapid changes of the modern world. Today, we sometimes live anxiously because our busy lives are subject to change from every side, that we are deprived of the continuous sense of meaning derived from stability. Today, no sooner do we get used to one mode of life when it's transformed into another. The office where my daughter Brooke works just upgraded its computer systems. She said she was just getting used to the old one. My career requires that I travel frequently, both inside and outside New York City. Getting around in cities has become only more difficult and time-consuming as the years go by. If I have a meeting in Midtown 2 miles away, it could take me up to an hour to get there by taxi because of traffic congestion. We used to keep a car in the city, but it became too expensive to keep it in a garage in a safe neighborhood. And to leave your car parked on the street, if you can find a spot, is an invitation to have it broken into and vandalized. There are also longer delays at the airports today due to air traffic control and heightened security. I've also learned to be zen about such shifts over which I have no control. I always leave early and ride out the delays by reading, working on a book chapter, and writing notes to friends. I prepare for the worst when I travel, knowing that I could be stranded for several hours waiting for a single flight. There's been a steady, pervasive disintegration of trust and confidence in the city due to people cheating and threatening one another. Ever since I began decorating in New York in 1961, I was wrong about how long she'd been doing this. If you've had established credit, you could conduct business transactions over the telephone in good faith. Now everyone requires a signature and deposit before any work begins, which causes delay. The workroom that builds furniture for my clients has been burned so often by slow payments that they now require that the final bill be paid before the furniture leaves the showroom, rather than waiting for the client's final approval after they receive their last pieces. Last year, after we taped a television show in Norwalk, Connecticut, our taxi to the train station was a half an hour late, causing us to miss the train back to New York City. Because I had a meeting in the city that afternoon, I asked the driver if he could take us all the way into New York, a 45-minute trip. The fare was $100, but I had no choice. As we zoom along Interstate 95, the driver asked us for the money. I knew I didn't have enough cash, and neither did my colleague Elizabeth, so we said that we would have to write a check as soon as we arrived. No, cash only. Pay now or I'll let you out. After reaching into every pocket and compartment possible, counting even nickels and pennies, we still didn't have enough. He then pulled over onto the shoulder of a crowded highway, and I feared the worst. We were like sitting ducks. Thankfully, we did search and miraculously came up with a difference. In a village, everyone performs services and then sends you the bill. There's a sense of empathy where everyone helps to fill another's needs. In the city, you're usually forced to go through impersonal channels, such as responding to an advertisement in the newspaper. In the village, a window or bulletin board at a liquor store may provide a free communication service by posting help-wanted ads or notices about babysitting services or a lost puppy. In less sophisticated times, where the pace of life was slower, there was fundamental grounding in everyday life. We need to find some modern equivalent to feel rooted in our lives today, not only to enjoy each day, but to soften the fall when we are thrown by life's inevitable difficulties and tragedies. Change is slow to take hold in the village. The small scale of life makes apparent the values that people cling to. The underlying support for a simple, rich, fulfilling, and gracious life. Home, family, friendship, community, loyalty, accountability, respect for the individual, and a shared sense of tradition and history continually in customs and rituals. the pleasures in the simple life, and a general sense of joy and connectedness to beauty and all things of the natural world. Village life provides a powerful example of the worth and dignity of human life. In the village, each person is valued. Here, no one is a stranger. If our garbage container is left on the sidewalk after recycling and we're not in residence, someone will put it inside our gate or walk it to the back out of sight. If you have to go to the hospital in an emergency, the ambulance team are dedicated volunteers from the neighborhood and will always arrive within a few minutes. No forms to fill out. You go. If you need landscape work done, there are people who will come to help out and do it with care. No one is too proud to earn a little extra money to help out with family finances. If your roof has water damage from the 1996 blizzard, the contractor who lives in the neighborhood comes over to check it out and give advice. If the cab doesn't pick you up in time to get to the Mystic Railroad station, anyone with a car is glad to take you. If a package comes while you are away, your neighbors will hold it for you until they see your lights on, and then they'll run it over to you. If it's snowing, a friend will pick up and deliver your newspaper to save you from leaving your cozy spot by the fire and going out into the cold. One of the waitresses in a local restaurant has an abundance of lilies of the valley in her yard. I love the way those smell. Often she'll take the time to gather up little bunches of the fragrant, delicate flowers and put the miniature bouquets on each table as a sweet and gracious gesture. If a good deed is done, or if there's good news, it gets around via word of mouth fast. Village life is rich in meaning because everything that happens within it is of consequence. A loss to one is a loss to all. In a city where life is busier, we can create this same continuity and community through loyalty in our daily interactions. In every city, there are elements of village life, a sense of cohesiveness available to all who seek it in their neighborhood. I greatly appreciate the people who are part of my daily life in New York. When I rented my first apartment in 1961, one block away from where we live now, I found friendliness available if you're willing to show genuine interest in people's lives wherever you go. That's true. That is so true even today. All these years later, I remember Stella, who did my dry cleaning. She advised me to never serve guests a spread finer than what you have when you're alone. Such good advice, a wise tidbit you wouldn't receive if you were in a rush. On the corner where I live is the YMHA, where we vote and where they have day and evening programs 7 days a week. There are forums, sports activities, a swimming pool, and other facilities. Authors give talks and readings, and journalists, doctors, spiritual leaders, actors, and actresses speak and perform. Often music ensembles will give concerts. When you participate in the YMHA and its activities, you have a stake in a village community right in the heart of a crowded city. All the churches, temples, and synagogues have activities for everyone in the community to become involved in. All we have to do is call up and put ourselves on a mailing list for their newsletters. I took an exercise class at the Brick Church across the street, for example, where they also hold Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. There are shelters, soup kitchens, tutoring, art exhibits, and adult education classes, as well as forums, all inviting us to get involved in the community. In front of the Heavenly Rest Church at 19th Street and 5th Avenue, you can not only take part in the activities of the church, including afternoon concerts, but you can enjoy Central Park and the reservoir, where you can observe horseback riders and runners who are perhaps in training for one of the city's many races. I joined the Yorkville Emergency Alliance when there were federal budget cuts in the 1980s. We met regularly to see what we could do in our neighborhood. We established dozens of soup kitchens and shelters that helped out with the local educational programs. Peter has always been involved in political clubs in our immediate neighborhood known as Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Oh, I'm sorry, it's Carnegie Hill. Carnegie Hill Association serves the community, assuming the same function as a borough. The association is primarily concerned with safety, especially for the several schools in the area, and beautification. It deals with all kinds of environmental issues, including building specifications. If you come to New York in the springtime, you'll be greeted by thousands of Dutch tulips in the island dividing Park Avenue, all paid for directly by the association and by residents. Later, the tulips are replaced with begonias. During the winter holidays, fir trees are decorated with tiny white lights on every block. The more you know people in your neighborhood, the more you care, which helps you to make meaningful connections with others. Patty, who now does our dry cleaning, is a hard-working and bright and a conscientious mother. I gave her one of my books, which she now reads to her 9-year-old child who wants to be a writer. One night when I wasn't feeling well, Peter wanted to pamper me with some delicious food, not the usual takeout variety we all eat when we get tired over time. Peter and I go to a restaurant near our apartment that reminds us of being in a small village in Normandy. Because Peter has such a friendly relationship with the owners, they were delighted to fix their first to-go gourmet meal and ran it up in a taxi. These kinds of interchanges and give and take of good deeds create the texture of village life wherever you go. Village life is all about people and community. Acts as simple as dropping off a note or some flowers to a neighbor or inviting friends over for an impromptu casual dinner can turn a city even as large as New York into a friendly village. In the village, we slow down and enjoy doing everyday things. We're not starved for new experiences. The sunsets at the point, the colorful gardens in our front and backyards, the walks, the visits with neighbors, the sense that there is time for everything, these never pale in comparison to what might be out there. We always have the day before us and the sky above us. Village life shows us that the joys of living are simple joys. Here we still have time to get back to our senses and live a more deliberate quality life. You can see this in the faces of the people on our streets. Mark Twain once observed, "Wrinkles should merely indicate where smiles have been." There are no frowns or downcast glances, no moping around. The face lines all turn up. There's an upbeat quality to the atmosphere, perfuming the moment with heavenly mist. If we rush for newer, quicker, better, we miss what we really crave, a calmer, gentler, and more gracious lifestyle. This is the way it should be, says a friend from our village. This is the way it should be everywhere. Then we can exhale and relax and feel a sense of peace that the important things still hold. We make important things hold value by valuing them deep within ourselves. Our next door neighbors who share our floor in our apartment building in New York have a big white Wheaten Terrier, William, who is not only loved by his owners, but also by all of us who see him come and go daily. We always invite him into our apartment for a quick run around and visit when we hear him shaking his collar outside our front door. When we spent weekends in New York before we bought our cottage, Peter would invite a small group of friends to come over for a visit after church every Sunday. When the new minister arrived, we had a dozen parishioners over to welcome him. Our living room has been the setting for countless fundraisers and special dinners for community causes, whether to benefit my daughter's day school or to fund special projects overseen by church groups. I'm going to stop there because we've been going on for about 30 minutes now, but I would encourage you, if you enjoyed hearing that, to find a copy of this book, Gracious Living in a New World by Alexandra Stoddard. And again, it was written or published anyway, in 1996. And I'm sure that if you can't find one that's still if they're not still making new copies, I'm sure you could find a used one on eBay. Thank you so much for watching, my dear friends. And if you want me to read more of this book, let me know. I'm not sure what the rules are for things like this, so I'm not sure if it's okay for me to read this aloud or not. Maybe I need to write a letter to Alexandra Stoddard and ask her permission for the rest of the book. I will say that she had written another book years ago, and she talked about how she loves to write letters and how she has very special pens. I believe they were fountain pens, and then she also has very special paper. And I took that to heart when I read that. I was newly married, and I took that to heart. And so when I send letters, a lot of times, if I can slow down, I will write on my special stationery, and it's just a joy to receive something like that in the mail, a handwritten letter on a nice piece of stationery like that. And if I don't take the time to write it, I at least paint a picture. I usually will paint a picture because my handwriting is atrocious. But anyway, thank you for listening to me rabble on. Y'all take good care, my friends. I hope you have a good evening. And hey, if you're still watching, give this video a thumbs up. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.